Now, I'm really glad I like Dear England, because it means I get to make this joke. My thoughts on Dear England are like the song Sweet Caroline. I thought it was so good, so good, so good. I'm proud of that one. I myself am not a massive football fan. I went to see this play because it's written by James Graham, who earlier this year had Best of Enemies in the West End, a really interesting political play, and I completely fell in love with his writing style. I think he is one of our strongest playwrights at the moment, and he's done it again. Man's done it again. Congratulations. Going into this, I was slightly worried, because I know nothing about football. Okay, that's a bit of a lie. I feel like football is such a big thing, especially in England, that I've absorbed some information. I know who Gareth Southgate is. I know who Harry Kane is. I even knew Sam Allardyce's name, somehow. I don't know. But I don't watch the football. I have never watched the World Cup, so I was worried going into this that I wouldn't understand it, I wouldn't get it. But I think a good piece of theatre can make you care about something that you would never care about in any other circumstance. And that's what Dear England does. By stripping back and changing the focus a little bit, it really explores football and gives a nice little bit of the humanity and the people behind it. So, why did I like Dear England, despite not being a massive football fan? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do video essays, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive into the sport. Let's go. Yes. So, Dear England is about Gareth Southgate. The play spans his run as the manager of the English football team. This job is tough. It leads up to heavy scrutiny, everyone in the country will either love you or hate you, and it's very commonly known as the impossible job. England has not won the World Cup since 1966. We have had a long track record of failure when it comes to football. And Gareth Southgate came into the role of England manager trying to understand why that was. The play tackles a lot. It goes through his entire run as manager up to the Euros in 2022. Spanning all the way through the past 50 million prime ministers that we've had. Jesus Christ. I love living in this country. But I think what makes Dear England work is that it really focuses on the people behind the sport. I think a lot of the time you get a lot of football commentary, and listen, I have heard football commentary. You get a lot of this commentary that kind of pushes to the side the people behind the sport. And a lot of this commentary, a lot of this discussion, and a lot of the scrutiny that these players face kind of often forgets that they are human, they are people. And they're still very young people who are suddenly pushed into the view of the entire world. That's a lot of pressure, and that's a lot of pressure on these people's shoulders. One small mistake in a game, and the entire country is against you. And we've seen that time and time again. We've seen that with how these football players are treated. And a lot of this play dives into that, and dives into how Gareth Southgate reshaped the team and added some things behind the scenes to help support the players. It's a really lovely story about teamwork, about what it means to be English, the backlash these players face, the racism that some of these players face. And because of this, and because of the way that it explores this, it makes it really accessible to someone who isn't a massive football fan. I know these players' names. I know who they are roughly, but I don't know the story. I didn't know the story going in. However, I felt completely and utterly engaged and on the side of all of these people. By focusing on that humanity, its accessibility just completely rises, and that's why I would say that this play isn't just for people who love football. There's a lot of people I know who have asked me since going to see this yesterday if they should go see it even though they don't like football. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. It's fantastic. What's more, I think the sport of football really blends well with theatre and kind of shows a couple of the things that overlap. I love a piece of theatre because of the story it tells. I love a piece of theatre because of the way that these unfold and the tension and the atmosphere and the different worlds that you go to. And I feel like there are things that overlap with sport. As this play explores, Gareth Southgate wanted to tell a story with football. He wanted to tell a story of England slowly rising to the top. Whether this succeeded, it didn't. We still haven't won. It still didn't come home. But that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to tell this story, this underdog story of a team of players rising up, which matches wonderfully to the world of theatre. As well as that, there's a lot of moments where they really build the tension. I think tension on stage is such a powerful tool, and you get this in the sport of football. They use it alongside a lot of the penalty moments. These moments that are make or break both for the players and the people watching. The entire world is watching these players as they take those steps back and run up after that whistle blows. These moments where your heart is beating, you're hoping and you're praying to win. There is so much power in that, and it mimics theatre so well, being in a room engaged with the same story. These worlds are not that different, and they really do match very well. What the play doesn't focus on as much is some of the things that I would have found more interesting. Going into this play, what I knew about Gareth Southgate's time as manager was a lot of the racism that the players faced on the team, specifically in the 2020 Euros, when it was all three of the players of colour who missed their penalties. And the backlash they got and the racism that they faced was immense. The play, to its credit, does give time to this and does put a lot of the emphasis and the focus onto this. However, I do feel like this could be a play in its own right. And that's some of the things that I feel like Dear England misses out on. I don't want to criticise it too harshly for this, because I'm looking for something that's not there. I'm looking for something that they're not trying to do. And they do give focus to it, and they do give weight to it. But there could be an entire play just solely on this one thing. And you can kind of tell how much they're trying to do in a very small space of time. There's obviously things that it has to leave out, and there's things that it has to kind of rush over a bit. Despite how much it's trying to cram in to this time frame, it feels very well paced. And honestly, if that's the only little bit of criticism I have for a play, you're doing a pretty good job. What's more, I think there is such a wonderful, tongue-in-cheek humour to this show. There's a lot of moments where they'll bring out the prime ministers that we've had over the past couple of years to show the passing of time, which is a really clever way to do it. And honestly, it's so James Graham. It's so James Graham to do that. We get Theresa May and her shambles of a government. Then we get Boris Johnson and his shambles of a government. We get Liz Truss and her 45 days in office shambles of a government. We love our government here. And these work as really nice little breathers throughout the play and a little bit of comedy. As well as that, there's loads of moments where they focus on everyday people. You gotta think, football affects almost everyone's life in England. And I'm sure this is the case in other countries as well. When the World Cup is on, when the Euros are happening, this is everything. Everything that anyone is talking about is this. And so it makes perfect sense to have these, and these kind of characters that you would just see anywhere and everywhere, kind of talking and discussing, like a man in a fish and chip shop, a clown who's smoking a cigarette outside a children's party, all giving their opinions on Gareth Southgate, as people do. My favourite of these is the opening to Act 2, where they just go full on, silly with it. It goes, full camp. As the entire country is celebrating the first time that England get to the semi-finals, it brings out that it's coming home. It brings out the Three Lions and all of these iconic songs, and does this really, joyous sequence where it just goes, full camp. I love it. This sequence is hilarious. I love how it's just kind of taking the piss at, this culture and how, obsessed everyone gets with this. What's more, I think there's so much beautiful direction and imagery within this show. We can blend this a lot with the design, which I'll talk about in a minute. But there's so many really clever details. The set is really simple. However, they still create these gorgeous images. I think the one that sticks in my head the most is the way that they do the final penalties. The penalties where England loses at the final. Oh, my Be Real came in. I'm recording a review. I'm recording a review of this Be Real. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm reviewing. Yes. This penalty happens. The players are surrounded by some actors at the side, and every time they get closer and closer to the final penalty, they take one step in, another step in. They're getting closer and closer as that pressure is building and building. It's how this play does such a great job at building this tension throughout these scenes. These moments, these make or break moments for England, for the country, for the game, where it's just everything is on this one thing as it gets closer and closer, as the pressure builds and builds, as the fear kicks in for these players. It's such a simple way to show this on stage, but it works so effectively to just show that little touch of doubt that creeps into the players' minds as they're taking that run up to try and win a game that the entire country is waiting on you for. The actual design of the show is quite simple, but it's so slick and it's so modern. There's a round disc on the bottom of the stage with some arrows on it to represent the kind of like markings that you would do as you're like planning out team strategies. And above it is this slightly tilted large round dome that kind of simulates this arena style, this stadium. On this thing you get different projections and screens that show the logo, show the names of the players, these people that you will know. Which is another thing this playgroup does really well. If you know these people, you're gonna get a massive kick out of like the accents and the way that they bring these characters to life. A lot of them are so accurate. Even not knowing too much about them, I see Harry Kane in that performance completely. I see Wayne Rooney in that performance completely. It's very simple with what it does. It holds back on a lot of the projection to really simply stage it, which puts a lot of the focus on the people. It's a very effective staging. Let's talk about some of the performances in this show. First off, Joseph Fiennes as Gareth Southgate. Man looks the spitting image of Gareth Southgate. I mean, Fiennes carries this show on his shoulders. He's got a lot to do in this play. And I feel like he really dives into a lot of the humanity behind Southgate. You get a lot of the backstory of Southgate and when he was a player, when he had this moment where the entire world's eyes were on him and he failed to deliver. How that pressure got to him and how that's kind of made him and pushed him to reshape the English football team. There's so much humanity within his performance. There's so much about him. He's such a likable character in this show. You really gravitate towards him. He's a very calm and collected leader, very humble, and I can't comment on how one-to-one that is with the actual Gareth Southgate, but for the lead of a play about Gareth Southgate that's giving him a pretty good rep, it does a great job at really aligning you with him. Dervla Kawan plays Pippa Grange, a psychologist, who joins the English football team to talk through a lot of these struggles. She's a really lovely presence in this show, adding a very different dynamic to this very kind of boys' club. She's a voice of reason in this show, and I think one of the scenes that really stood out to me was the scene that she does with Dara Hand, who plays Marcus Rashford, as he's talking about when England lost the game and how he didn't do his little good luck charm before going on. The way that Pippa Grange kind of goes up to Rashford, how she talks to him very humanely, calms him down, gets him to talk through what he does so that they can do it together. This moment is so well done between these two actors. It's a lovely, lovely, touching moment that again just dives completely into the people behind the players. These little good luck charms that they have, these little things that will completely throw them off their game if they don't feel like they've done it. All of the actors who play the different footballers are brilliant. Obviously, I've mentioned Dara Hand, who plays Marcus Rashford. I think another key highlight out of these guys is the actor of Harry Kane, Will Close, who gets the impression of Harry Kane down like that. It is impressive. He gets this really lovely story through the show where he's kind of warming up to being a leader amongst his team, being the team captain. The pressure of that job as well, and the questioning of why he was chosen to do it. Trying to live up to the English captains of years gone by and feeling like you're not doing enough to live up to that. And a supporting performance that I have to mention because it's brilliant, it's so good, is Crystal Condi's impression of Theresa May. Just, it's so fucking good. It's so good. It's the little isms of Theresa May, and it's the "I tried" 3 times as they throw in the Theresa May quotes. You're just it's so good. She gets the mannerisms down so perfectly. The genius of Dear England is how it takes the people behind the sport and focuses solely on that. The pressure that they face and the impossible job of not just being the manager of England, but being a part of the English football team when the entire world's eyes are on you. Dear England is such a well thought out play, tackling these issues that a lot of men face and doing it in such an engaging way. It's accessible to people who don't really understand football, and if you love football, you're going to enjoy it even more, recognising all of these players and getting a deeper understanding for what they go through. Sure, I feel like the play has moments and has potential to dive into some of these bigger issues, like the racism, like the homophobia, but it still gives these moments a little bit of time within the play to breathe and to explore them. With an absolutely stacked cast of fantastic performers and a book by James Graham that just completely understands and tackles this issue perfectly, Dear England does the one thing England can't. It wins. But what do you think? Have you seen Dear England? Are you interested in seeing Dear England? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps our channel. Here's some links to my other videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!